So two parts.
Well, first of all, Heba, thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of Charles Russell and contributing to an event in Bahrain that I think is very important. Franchising has grown in the Middle East year on year over the last 5 years by about 26% per annum. So it's a huge market, and we're delighted to be here. To your first point, franchise laws in the GCC do not exist. So I don't have a ready-made boilerplate franchise agreement to show you, such as perhaps one that Tim could show from the US or indeed any other European nation. The typical default position for a franchise agreement is a commercial agency agreement. And that is often supplemented by civil code, IP protection law in the country, property law, and the like. So it really is absolutely vitally important for both the franchisee and the franchisor to agree terms and conditions. This is, as Tim was referring to in his opening remarks, this is a partnership arrangement, and for it to work, both parties have to be satisfied with the terms and conditions of contract. I think there certainly is a push in Dubai towards establishing proper franchise laws, and we would certainly, as a law firm, support that in Bahrain as well. Sorry, to your second point.
Second, how would a Bahraini business owner go about protecting their business proposition or their brand as they venture to franchise out?
The two most popular franchise routes in the Middle East actually are master franchise and master developer agreements. We tend not to see JV arrangements or direct or subsidiary franchise agreements. The reasons for that are such as in the case of Mohammed Al Shire in Kuwait, which, as many of us will know, is known as the franchise king in the GCC. Acts as a master franchise on behalf of a lot of brands in the region. And that organization sub-franchises to either developers or units across the region. So, for instance, Starbucks coffee would be a classic example of that. Mm-hmm. It's important to recognise that a franchisee is actually only ever borrowing the brand, and there are no rights over and beyond that. The franchisor obligation is to register the trademark and the trade name in the country in which the franchise is looking to do business. And the franchisee's obligations are to uphold all the intellectual property rights for that brand in that country. Now, that is a very widely worded phrase, and it's one that needs to be heavily caveated and discussed between both parties, because as a franchisee, what you don't want to do is take on board all the responsibilities for brand protection if somebody else sets up another operation under exactly the same name, producing a very similar type of product, a food and drink product, which is about 60% of franchising in the Middle East, and then you're left, having to investigate that and carry the charges for it and the legal bill, which can be very high. So master development and master franchise agreements, from a franchisor's perspective, are a very good way to go and a very popular way to go in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what about the other side? I think you touched on that if a Bahraini business owner ventures out, but the franchisees are not protecting their because agreement could be, everybody should protect. This is the gentleman's agreement, and sometimes it will be written. But what if they don't protect their business proposition and do all they do their own concept or dilute the concept? If there are no franchise laws, who does the franchisor go to? Or how do you protect that? How do you prevent that from happening?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. In the absence of franchise laws, you revert to the commercial agency agreements, which actually puts a lot more a lot more sway and a lot more power in the control of the franchisee. So, for instance, under commercial agency protection, the franchisee can claim commission on sales, even though they may not be the agent on that product.
Exactly.
If it's a food and beverage product that's coming into Bahrain, the franchisee, if they're not the consignee, can put a ban on that product. Now, this doesn't work for the franchisor, clearly. What we would encourage at Charles Russell is actually both parties sit down and agree their obligations together. As a business model, franchising is relatively straightforward, but the clauses that are in franchise agreements and need to be covered in franchise agreements, such as insurance, protection of brand, termination of contract, what rights do you actually have, operations manuals, upholding the integrity of the brand and the company. This can run to pages and pages and pages, and in actual fact needs to. It really does, because whilst it's a simple business model, there are many moving parts.
You need a good law firm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.